Thank you for coming in. The Columbian is happy to welcome candidates for Clark Public Utilities Commissioner from District 2. And from my left to right, we have Donna Roberge, Bob Cohn, Mike Lyons, and Nancy Barnes. And I am Greg Jane, the editorial page editor. And we are videotaping this for use on our website. We post all of our meetings unedited for the benefit of our readers. So again, thank you for coming in. We'll start with some introductions. Take 1 to 2 minutes to give a little background about yourself and explain why you were running for this office. And we'll start down here with Donna.
Okay, I'm Donna Roberge, and I like to serve on commissions because I believe they provide opportunities for citizens to make decisions that are really important, that directly affect the public. I ran and was elected as the Camas Washougal Commissioner. I am chair of the Clark County Arts Commission. I've been appointed to the Clark County Aging Commission, and I'm currently the Arts Commissioner for the city of Camas, where I reside. What should I say? What would you like me to?
That's fine. No.
That's enough.
Good. Bob?
Well, the basic reason that I'm doing it is because of my grandkids. My position is to get clean energy, as opposed to what we've got now. And I used to be a care manager for seniors and volunteered with the Area Agency on Aging and Disabilities. And since my daughter and her family moved in, and I've kind of seen it's the younger people that really need the attention now. It's not the seniors so much. I was an ombudsman, and I didn't find abuse, a couple of little things, but it's not a problem. Seniors need attention, but the young people need more attention, I think. So I'm shifting that. I'm a CASA. I've got a couple of kiddos that I look after. I think the younger generation is who needs attention now, and that's to do with global warming, and it's their future is at risk. So I'm running on that basis.
Great, thank you. Mike?
My name's Mike Lyons. I ran 6 years ago. Me and Nancy were in the general. I became interested in energy back when I remodeled my mom's 1879 house, insulated it, put electric heat in, and bought her an electric dryer. And after that, I decided to go to school and get an engineering degree, mechanical engineering degree, and my interest was in energy. Classes in thermodynamics, heat transfer, HVAC. In fact, my senior project was a micro hydro project in Clark County, design, and also heat loss analysis on houses. So having that education and being interested in energy back in the early 90s when the PUD decided to get rid of their almost 100% allocation of Bonneville Power, I thought that was not a good idea. And since it's clean and renewable and cheaper than what the alternative turned out to be. So when I ran in, when I ran in 2010, my interest was to get more hydroelectric power. But since attending many meetings since then, I realized that the staff works very hard to provide economical power to Clark County residents. And the interest now is how to deal with like I-797 or 937 and I-732, and also the cap and reduction, or cap and trade, I'll call it, that the governor's wants to do an executive order on.
Great, thank you. Nancy?
Yes, well, thank you for having this discussion. I believe these issues are really important, and I believe this particular position is very important to everyone in Clark County. I don't mean to leave you out, I don't know who to look at, I'll talk to you too.
Look at him, he's the.
I'm running because I believe that my knowledge and experience, my proven track record, and my vision for Clark Public Utilities is of real value to our customers, the voters and citizens of Clark County. Under my leadership, we haven't had a rate increase in 6 years, and we've absorbed 3 wholesale rate increases from the Bonneville Power Administration. I believe we positioned the utility to be in such a strong financial place that we will absorb the next 3 rate increases, the next 3 wholesale rate increases without increasing rates to our customers. When you call Clark Public Utilities, a human employee answers the telephone. They are empowered and trained to solve your problems, answer your questions, and get you the help that you need in that one human phone call. We have high reliability. Our reliability, in fact, is award-winning. We put a lot of time and energy and money into vegetation management, tree trimming, cable injection for our underground cable, tree wires, and I believe that going forward, there are great, exciting opportunities for Clark Public Utilities. I'm running because I think we need to keep a great thing going.
Great, thank you all. We'll start out with kind of a general question. Where is the biggest area for improvement for Clark Public Utilities? And we'll start with Tom.
Well, I think on a long-range basis, I'd like to see the reduction of the use of fossil fuels and movement more to a green economy. I think that is not possible right now. I think that is really a long-range goal because the technology hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah, do you know what percentage of fossil fuels do they use now?
What, I'm sorry?
What percentage of their power comes from fossil fuels?
You know, I don't know that percentage. I realize that the PUD works for conservation areas. I'd like to see more involvement in that. And more forest conservation restores more carbon pollution. I think that the current cost for energy right now to customers is very reasonable. And if I become a PUD commissioner, I would work very hard to try to keep the cost down for customers until at a time when our technology allows us to move forward.
Thank you. Bob, where's the biggest area for improvement?
Well, I disagree. I think the technology is there and we need to start investing, but probably incrementally. It wouldn't behoove us to borrow a lot of money to buy storage for our electric, extra electricity we make from solar and wind and so forth. But the lithium-ion batteries are at a point where they're pretty much reasonable price. Well, they're expensive, but the technology is going to the point where they're getting less and less expensive very rapidly. And it's time now to start investing in that. And then the next time around, it'll be better technology and cheaper, and just continue along those lines.
Great, thank you. Mike?
Well, that's a tough question because I think the PUD does a wonderful job. So I'm trying to think of an area of improvement. Back in 2010, I would have said it was lowering prices. However, in 2010, of the 21 PUDs that in the state of Washington, our PUD rated number 2 as the second highest. However, they've improved their position amongst the other PUDs since then. In 2016, I ran a spreadsheet. They run number 10 from the top. So they've done a good job of containing prices. The residential energy, Washington State is the lowest in the country for cost of electricity for in the nation. So it's a tough question.
Okay. Nancy?
I think that the greatest challenge we have going forward is maintaining our low rates and our high reliability in a time of dramatic, significant change in the utility industry. The whole energy industry is transforming from the industry that used to build large generating plants far from cities and counties and towns, and then over high voltage transmission lines, we would transport the energy to the load centers. And this is changing. This provides opportunities, if you look at it that way, or problems, if you look at it that way. I prefer to think it's an opportunity, because what you're going to see now is increased demand-side management and distributed generation. Demand-side management includes things like smart meters, Nest thermostats, where you can voluntarily have people turn up and down their hot water heaters, their HVAC. It involves exceeding our conservation targets. The Northwest Power Planning and Conservation Council on their webpage states that we probably will serve all of the load growth in the next 20 years in the Pacific Northwest with energy efficiency alone. Energy efficiency involves many things. We have a seat on the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, where they talk about market transformations in energy efficient appliances, in building codes. We have exceeded our conservation targets every year running. Target by 50 or 40% or more, and we intend to keep doing that. We have great rebate and financing programs for people that wish to put solar panels on. We had a meeting with some of our solar customers a few weeks ago, and it was a great meeting. It was nice to hear everybody out, because all three commissioners own solar in some form or another. We were all on the same team trying to figure out a balance between how we subsidize solar, how we deploy solar, how we bring everybody together with it. So I think it's going to be a real challenge. One of the other big issues in our county had been the high voltage transmission line that the Bonneville Power Administration was planning. And since then, as evidence of the kind of transformation I'm talking about, they've begun this pilot project, a 5-year pilot project called the Alston South Non-Wire Solution. And what they're finding is they can go to large energy users in the Portland area, warehouses, manufacturing facilities, and say to them, we'll help pay for solar panels on your roof so that during times of high load, we can diminish the pull that you have on the electric system. Are you planning any other cogen or generation systems that we can count on? And this project has proved to be quite valuable. There are a few more years left. There's a hearing next month over at BPA on this. But I believe that you're going to find non-wire solutions to these high voltage transmission lines. So I think this is going to be a real challenge. The intermittent resources that we're bringing on board in the Pacific Northwest are just that. They're intermittent. We have to maintain our high reliability. Everybody thinks that when they turn that switch, the power will go on. Our industrial customers are highly dependent on high quality, highly reliable power. It will be a challenge. And there's a lot of pressure from the environmental community and special interests to raise our rates to help them in their particular agendas. I think there's a balance we have to strike, but my priority will be to maintain our low rates and our high reliability.
Let me ask about your views on the proposed oil terminal. And let's start with
Well, I thought your editorial this morning was excellent, because I think I don't mean false flattery, but because one of the things in the discussion that gets lost is that we're talking about two different issues with the oil terminal. We're talking about oil trains coming through the Pacific Northwest and down the Columbia River Gorge, and we're talking about the rail to marine terminal. Those have different decision makers and different areas of where we can make influence, where we can have influence. As part of the rail to marine terminal, I signed a letter that the utilities sent as part of the comment period saying, we have a very grave concern about safety at the port. That's where our River Road generating plant is. We have employees there, we have assets there, and safety should be our number one concern. I think that your editorial pointed out, and I would have to agree with that I do not believe safety has been addressed. I know the legislature will tell you that they passed some legislation, but I have a real problem with the whole idea that rail transportation of oil can be made safe. However, we dealt with I'm probably going on too long, but we dealt with the railroad when we undergrounded our transmission line there along the Columbia River, just outside of Camas, and they are another entity altogether. So when you're dealing with the oil trains, You have governors that can make temporary stops or temporary bans on oil trains on their rails, but not permanent ones. You're talking about dealing with a federal issue.
Okay.
I'm going on too long, excuse
No,
me.
that's okay, but now I'm gonna give you a chance to just give me one word.
Okay?
If you had to vote yes or no on this oil terminal, how would you vote? And you get one word.
Today, no.
Okay.
I should have said less than if you only want one word.
Well, that was close.
Okay.
Well, I'm very concerned about the transportation of oil on the rails. I mean, obviously, the fire departments don't have the resources to handle an incident, and but I wonder if the terminal doesn't exist, are they going to still travel through Vancouver? And so there is an argument, and it's not my argument, but it's an argument that if the terminal exists, the oil company will have to provide resources to the community to deal with any issue that happens. Also, when it's when the trains are moving that the problem is, and if they're still moving through Vancouver, and it's not particularly when they're stopped out there. So it's hard to say. It would be nice to come up with the resources to handle an incident, but if you ask me, I say no also.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, on both grounds. Well, on the safety issue, I'm against it as well. But my reason for being against it is really the big picture. All that carbon from burning fossil fuels going into the air. It's a significant amount, and I've been opposed to a number of the oil proposals along the Columbia, one at Kalama with the anyway, the plastic stuff they want to make out of natural gas and the coal terminal up at Longview. I don't know, actually, I've been there, and there was a picture of me at the last discussion about the environmental impact, and I used a picture that was taken by the Columbian. I posted it on my Facebook page. So I was there, and some other in my group were there, and we were definitely opposed to the terminal.
Good, thank you.
If I were to write about it, I'd write exactly what you wrote in your editorial today. I am opposed to it because I agree with Nancy. The safety issues have not been addressed as well and as thoroughly as they need to be. And personally, I kind of hang over the railroad track, and it's a concern to me if a fire breaks out, of course. Many homes would be destroyed, many lives. And it's a very difficult one economically. I can see people arguing, well, it supplies jobs, but I think the safety issues far outweigh that. So I would vote no.
Thank you.
Now, Mike, in 2010, as he mentioned, you ran against Nancy.
Yes.
And it was a very close race.
Yeah.
How would you assess her performance since then on the commission?
Her performance?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have any issue with her performance. Again, I think the PUD is doing a good job. It's tough to say that way, but they do everything they can to provide a reliable source at an affordable cost. And
Why do you want to unseat her?
huh?
Why do you want to unseat her? She's doing good.
Good question too. Well, she's been there 24 years, and I want to add some. That's good thing. She's learned a lot. Obviously, you can tell, and I just want to add fresh ideas to the challenges that are coming forward.
So she's got kind of stale ideas.
No, I wouldn't.
May I respond to that?
Well, yeah, hold on one second.
Oh, okay.
You wouldn't consider her ideas stale, but you've got fresh ones. Does she have fresh ones?
Well, sure she does.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So these are other fresh ideas?
Different
Other fresh, different ideas?
with,
Okay. All right.
I believe in term limits, and 24 years in a public service local position is too much. And I believe 24 years ago, Nancy ran on that very platform that she was interested in term limits to unseat Mr. Runyon, I believe at the
Is
time.
that true, Nancy?
That actually is not true.
Oh.
At the time, I was president of a large neighborhood association, the Cascade Park Civic Association, and we were dealing with some land use issues there. We had hired an attorney. We were concerned. I'd been on the South County Planning Committee, I think it was. But I was really concerned that we weren't having responses, timely responses from the utility for the issues that we were addressing. So I started attending the PUD meetings. I attended faithfully for about 6 months before I decided that my opponent was getting older and had lost his enthusiasm for the job, and we needed somebody to come in that had new enthusiasm.
So you never mentioned the words term limits?
I don't think so. In my mind, this was, I could go back, I could be wrong. In my mind, term limits was a topic that we talked about a lot back then, but it was really targeted towards politicians who don't have another job, who leave their county or state, go to Washington, D.C., or go to Olympia, make a living there, and never return to the people that they represent. I think this position is very different. I don't think you make enough money to live on, and I actually have a full-time job and live and work in the community, and so I believe that the kind of position you're describing is a little different from the legislative push for term limits that we saw in the past.
My source was the Columbian.
Oh, well.
Oh, must be true.
is that sort of like the internet? No,
No, it's not.
Well, and to the question, fresh ideas, I would kind of like to get away from maybe the Northwest energy model and maybe look at solar, vote solar model on how to transition from fossil fuels to mostly solar power. They give detailed ways to transition, and I think that's a better model to look at than Northwest Energy, whose renewable energy is about, 6% of their mix, so, or what is it, something like that?
Yes.
May I answer this?
Yes.
If you look at some of the carbon control measures that are coming forward, you have to remember that of the generation in the state of Washington, 80% of it is carbon free. We have the lowest carbon footprint and the lowest retail prices in the United States. I believe that the carbon emissions in the state of Washington make up 0.3% of climate global emissions. I also believe that the transportation sector emits 4 to 5 times as much carbon as the electric sector. I believe that targeting the electric sector in the state of Washington for carbon problems is going to be solved in 2025 when Centralia closes, as the legislature has already decided. I think we have so many issues that need to be addressed in the state of Washington: transportation, education, healthcare, that focusing on further reducing carbon emissions from the electric sector is not the most effective way to use our time and energy. And I didn't see with the big solar meeting that we had.
Transportation is a major polluter, and that is a reason why, as commissioner, I would like to push.
70% of our energy comes from hydroelectric. Washington State does a good job of producing energy without carbon in it, even it's a low amount of carbon. There's other places in the nation that produce a lot more carbon for their electricity than we do. I believe these carbon initiatives should be done at the national level rather than the local level. In other words, piecemeal and stuff together in Washington. Well, because
Why wait for the federal government to do something? They don't have much money. I think PUD needs
50
to
different piecemeal
in-house
carbon
incentives to to
Yeah.
switch to
You're
solar.
familiar with the incentives that we have now.
Yeah.
We recently had I'm sorry, I'm stealing the discussion here.
No.
We recently had a big solar meeting with a lot of our solar customers. We have about 700 customers, I think a few less than that now, participating in our community solar project. I'm one of them. I'm very proud of my photovoltaic piece of the project. We have a little more than 500 people with rooftop solar installations. I think we've been extremely supportive of solar energy. And your discussion that we need to purchase storage for our solar customers is difficult for me to understand because they are developing the lithium-ion battery. I drive a Prius. I'm really proud of the little things each of us can do. If you're concerned about global,
The key is the individual's
I agree.
actions.
I agree.
And together, though, our group action needs to be along those lines as well. And what I'm trying to say is the charging stations for like your Prius, is it plug-in or
We have
hybrid?
6 charging stations the utility has on their properties. 2 of them are the high-speed charging stations. We have purchased more and more all-electric vehicles for the utility as part of our fleet. Several of our manager and several of our directors drive. I think the Leaf is the most common one, but vehicles, and that is a part of this transformation in the electric industry. We have to plan for the electrification of vehicles. I think that
That's right.
Clark is on the cutting edge of doing that. And I really share your concerns. I just want you to be familiar with what we're
well
doing.
behind Oregon as far as our electric vehicle purchases in Washington State, so
We
we
are
need to encourage that more.
And along talking about carbon emissions, start with Bob. The Utilities Commission has formally come out against Initiative 732. What are your thoughts on the initiative, and what are your thoughts about their stance on it?
They're trying to make a penalty for polluting carbon, but
I-732, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
And there was another one in the works, which would have taken that fine money and put it into developing renewable energy sources, so research and so forth. But 732 is going into reduce the sales tax.
So are you
Which
also
personally I
opposed-
think is counterproductive because we need the tax money for benefits for citizens as tax money.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Donna,
another.
Donna, what are your
Well,
thoughts
I-
on 732 and the
well,
Commission's
I
stance?
think the commissioners felt that it was not appropriate, and I did not hear their full discussion. But I think PUD needs to be commended for their hybrid and electric green fleet. I think that's doing a lot. I mean, every little bit helps there, and I think they're on the right road to addressing it in the future with maybe another initiative, but not that one.
Oh, I agree with the commission opposing I-732. It doesn't do anything to eliminate carbon, and the money that's collected from the tax goes into the general fund to supplant what the reduction in the sales tax. Excuse me.
Do you want some water?
No, that's fine. The costs of it, and there isn't anything we can do about really the generating plant. That's the source for of power for about 40% of what the PUD supplies, and to replace that with wind, which costs generally about 3 times as much as hydro, or solar, which is more like 5 or 6 times if you don't. That's including the incentives from the state and the feds. Would be a tough thing to do. As the measure matures, it'll cost the PUD, they estimate, $58 million out of their $370 million budget, which would increase the rates to the customers by 15 to 18%. Now that might be a acceptable increase to try and reduce carbon, but I don't believe 732 does anything to reduce carbon, because this is the supply we're going to have for a while, until photovoltaic comes down in price by a long ways. And Nancy mentioned their community solar, and they recently had a cap on the state funds that incentives for the customers, which changes the viability of that program too.
Nancy, did you go along with the commission in opposing 732?
Yes, I oppose Initiative 732. 732, if you're concerned about carbon, this will do nothing to change carbon outputs. This is a tax, plain and simple, going into the general fund. If we want to monetize and tax carbon, we need to do that and be honest with the voters about what we're doing.
Exactly. I agree with that. Renewable wind and solar is just too expensive to even be looking at this point. Again, I'm hoping technology will take us there, but it's not there now.
Well, there's talk about, paying forward what you're saving now is kicking the can down to our youth down the road. They're going to be paying for this.
There's some great programs at the utility if these are your concerns. For instance, are you familiar with our Green Lights program? Every month, I have a certain amount of money taken out of my, paid through my utility bill, and this goes through the Bonneville Environmental Foundation. Good, well then you're doing this. And this promotes the research and development that I think is so critical so that these technologies mature and can be of greater value to us.
I didn't realize all the public service kinds of things that PUD does in the community. It's absolutely fabulous. It's on the website, and one after the other. It's just wonderful.
Our new website.
Yes, and it's very well done.
Now, I want to turn to Nancy again. General Manager Wayne Nelson, the Clark Public Utilities General Manager. I believe he is the highest paid public employee in Clark County. At least he has been in recent years. And you guys set his salary. Is he the single most valuable public employee in the entire county?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe he touches every home and every business. I believe that the work that we do at Clark Public Utilities makes him worth all of the money that we pay him. I challenge you to name, actually in the past, some of the directors of ESD have been more highly paid, and there are other salaries that challenge his. But you name one of these other agencies that provides what we provide, and I'm proud of his leadership. I believe that I'm comfortable with his salary level. He is there every day and leads the utility, and what you hear in this room is excellent work for all of our customers.
I think he touches more homes and more lives than any other CEO in our county.
So you don't have any concerns about his salary?
Absolutely not. After having conversations with him, I'm very impressed. He's very knowledgeable. He's very open. I think PUD is very fortunate to have him.
I like him. He agreed that we can do more to reduce our carbon footprint. I spoke with him, and that's what I like to see. I mean, he's expensive, but seems, and I disagree with, I guess I agree with him wanting to go along with the new cap and trade law and not oppose it because of political reasons, and I guess that's what utility has to do, but even though it's flawed.
Which law? Are you referring to the governor's car rules?
Yeah.
The clean air rules?
Yeah.
I wasn't part of that conversation. They're not final. They won't be until towards the end of July, and we haven't considered them on the commission. So, in my mind, we're still waiting to see. They certainly were improved from the February submission that the governor made. The June submission was certainly better, but if you had a conversation with Mr. Nelson and talked about how we can reduce our carbon footprint, we all believe that that can happen. We have the same kind of transportation and job sharing at the utility. But my challenge to everyone who has this conversation with me is to look at your very own lives and see what you're doing. Look at whether you have had an energy audit and are using the energy that you use as efficiently and conserving as much as possible. Look and see whether there are measures you can take right then, whether you're participating in the Green Lights project.
We build our
Spending that.
home.
Wayne Nelson.
Yeah.
Its salary is what the question was coming. And he directly supervised most of the staff that talk at the meeting or at the meetings, and I'm really impressed with the job that these guys do, whether it's the head of the water department or the electrical utility or the accounting, and if in fact he's responsible for maintaining those people and hiring them, I'm all for what he gets paid. He's certainly worth more than the president of the WSU, in my opinion, and look how much they get, $800,000 or something like that. Yeah.
Great. We'll move along. Give us your final pitch, why voters should support you, and please mention any notable endorsements that you would like. We'll start at this end.
I believe that I can serve the residents of Clark County and that they will have great value in the experience and knowledge I have. I have a vision for the future and I understand where we're going. I think my proven track record is something that you can look at and see what I've done and when I've done it. I believe that we have a great thing going, and I believe we need to keep it going.
Thank you. Any endorsements? Do you guys
Not yet.
seek endorsements for this?
I have
position?
several interviews in the coming few weeks, but no endorsements yet.
Okay. Thank
The question again, sorry.
you. Give us your final pitch, why voters should support you.
Oh, okay. I have a background or an education in engineering, and wouldn't make decisions that, like the bad decision made in my belief in 1990, in the early 90s, to get rid of our 100% Bonneville power. I don't have any endorsements yet, and I'm planning on getting some. But
Great. Thank you. Bob, why should voters support you?
Well, voters range in age. We've got a lot of seniors on fixed incomes and struggling to make it. And Clark has programs to help people like that. So I think that's great. They're covered. But transitioning to lower carbon emissions, it's going to cost a little money. Hopefully it can be done incrementally. But I am really trying to appeal to the younger voters, the millennials, the people that are going to be dealing with the future. And a little money spent up front here is going to save a lot down the line if you look at the predictions. And I'd like to keep costs down by implementing these changes incrementally as funds come available, but there may be some rate increase. But I think it behooves us as parents, as grandparents, to invest in our children's future, to do these things. And as far as endorsements, I've interviewed with the Sierra Club, and I hope to get their endorsement. They probably will not come out with it for a bit, but I'm hoping.
Okay. Thank you, Doug.
Well, I don't believe that this public service position should be given to someone year after year after year. I think fresh ideas, fresh faces. I have lots of experience on commissions, and I really believe that I can represent the public very well. I listen, and I really care about our county, and I care about the PUD because it touches almost every person's life, one way or the other. And I see that continuing and expanding even more in the future. And I'd like to address the elephant in the room as it relates to me. I hope that when voters see my age, they don't say, oh my gosh, she's got 1 foot in the grave. Because I remember working with Val Ogden a lot, and she said, Donna, don't let people define you by your age, but only by your accomplishments. So I really would like to have this position and represent the public.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to add that I'm the only one here other than Nancy that regularly attended over the years PUD meetings with an interest in serving on the board.
And our house was built in 1981, and we have a solar house.
Cool.
Oh, congratulations.
Great, well, thank you all for coming in.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
your
much.
time.